G'day guys, Q from Real Cider Reviews here with Lee Reeve. Lee, you're from inCiderJapan. Tell me a little bit about that organisation.
Well, inCiderJapan is it's a company. We are a consulting company and also a publishing company. So we put out a magazine called inCiderJapan, a quarterly magazine, and we bill ourselves as the first and only bilingual English and Japanese magazine dedicated to all things cider.
Okay, so how long's that been going for?
We are working on issue number 4, so almost a year.
Okay, great.
I think the idea for the company came in about 2015, but it took me about 2 years to research viability, and then we launched last year in December.
Okay, so that's not a Japanese accent, that's a little bit more Glaswegian.
Yeah, so
Tell us your cider story.
Born in the UK, born in Newcastle, but grew up in Glasgow, and lived here and there, including the United States and Europe, and ended up in Japan in 2001, and I've been there ever since.
Okay, so you've been in Australia for a few days now.
Yes!
How's what you're drinking over here different to what you're drinking in Japan?
Well, sort of the same thing that I am when I drink imported ciders in Japan. Is that there's a lot more there's a lot more apple. There's just a lot more flavours in Australian ciders.
Yep.
So a bit closer to what I'm used to from home.
Yep.
But that's something that I've sort of had to train myself away from, because in Japan, we're just not the Japanese cider makers are not quite there yet.
Yep.
I think they aspire to have more of those bottom flavours incorporated, but we just don't have the apples. But we'll have to see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me about the Japanese cider drinking culture. It's not really there yet? Is it growing?
It's not there yet. It is growing. I think in my presentation I said that for general purposes, 2016 is about when the cider thing starts.
Yeah.
It's actually started before that, but as far as the public is concerned, it's growing. And I think even this year, 2018, we've had the biggest turnouts for cider events and the biggest responses for cider. And there's been more cider visibility in print media and television, so things are happening, absolutely.
Yeah. So I really like drinking fresh, fruity Australian ciders with spicy Vietnamese food. Mm-hmm. Is that something that's seen in Japan a little bit? Is sushi and cider a common combination?
Absolutely, and we do, well, inCiderJapan also does, we do tastings and pairings.
Yep.
And we've paired everything from Thai food to Japanese food, sushi, sashimi, raw fish,
yep.
Chinese food, pretty much the whole gamut.
Yeah.
The only difference is that most Japanese ciders tend to be on the extremely dry.
Yep.
There are a few semi-sweet and sweet ciders, but in general they tend to be dry, so we go that route. But then I introduce or pair those also with UK ciders and American ciders. So.
Okay. We're giving a presentation to Cider Australia this afternoon.
Yes, very excited about that. It was great.
What were you talking about?
Basically, I gave a short history about just apples in Japan,
yep.
and then the cider industry, how it got started,
mm-hmm.
and then sort of where it's now, and then what I'm doing with it,
yep.
and where I hope to help push it into the future. And then sort of how we can maybe work together with Australia and Cider Australia, just to make things happen and create win-wins for everybody.
Yeah, yeah. So you've probably only got a little bit of space in your suitcase. I ask all my international guests this. What have you snuck into your backpack to take back to Japan with you?
I've done 2 trips at the Oak Barrel.
Yep, it's a great shop.
Willie Smith's. I've got some Lobo.
Yep.
I've got some pagan ciders as well.
Yep.
There's a few others I can't remember, but I'm planning to do another run. Sort of maximised space. I don't know what the limit is.
Try a few today and
absolutely
see what you're going to buy a bottle of.
But I've had a few, and there's not one that I haven't liked.
Yeah, excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Cheers, man.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay, I'm here with Eric West. You may know him from his work at GLINTCAP. Eric, tell us a little bit about the GLINTCAP competition.
Sure. So GLINTCAP is the longest running competition in the States that's exclusively judging cider. At the awards in May, we had over 1,300 entries, so that makes it the largest cider show in the world by number of entries. One of the cool things about GLINTCAP is we have both a commercial division and a non-commercial division. So amateur cider makers can submit their ciders for feedback as well, and it's pretty neat part of what we do there.
Yeah, that's pretty unusual in the cider judging world.
It is, yeah. One of the neat things we've seen is that the amateur cider makers submit their ciders to GLINTCAP, get extensive feedback from our judges, and they can actually use that if they're deciding to go commercial. So we've seen a lot of people have success in the amateur division and then go on to have success in the commercial division as well.
That's good for the industry, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So that's, as you said, that's the biggest competition in the world.
Yeah.
How many numbers did you say?
1,334 entries this past year.
Wow.
So yeah.
So to put that into perspective, tonight you were on the judging panel.
That's right. So it's about 5 times the number of entries there were in the Australian Cider Awards.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that what we do is better or worse necessarily, but we've just kind of had to scale our competition up to be able to handle the number of entries that we have.
And so how do you find the Australian ciders stacking up against the American ones?
Well, I mean, as far as the awards, I found that very few ciders were obviously flawed. I mean, I thought a lot of the Australian ciders were quite good. There's a lot of growth in the traditional cider category here, so the ciders using English and French cider apple varieties, and as we've seen here tonight, a Kingston Black cider won the Best of Show award here, so that was quite exciting to see.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So you've been doing a little bit of travelling around Australia since you've been here.
Yeah.
How does the Australian scene stack up to the American ones? So farmhouse ciders, different types of tasting rooms. What do you think?
Yeah, I think in Australia, this is a pretty broad generalization, but I think that the sort of cellar door kind of wine style model is much more common here.
Yeah.
Whereas in the States, it's more sort of your kind of family friendly cider mill, donut kind of model.
Yeah.
And in general, I think the U.S. cider industry is more geared to what's happening in the brewing industry.
Okay.
So again, I don't necessarily think one is better than the other, but because your average Australian knows a lot more about wine than your average American, it kind of makes sense that the cider industry here would be kind of leaning on the sort of groundbreaking work that Australian wine has done to kind of increase the awareness of cider among the Australians.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what did you like about Australian cider and what didn't you like?
Well, I think what I really liked is the emphasis on putting a lot of that English and French kind of cider variety apples in the ground and making cider from that. I think there's a real focus on tradition here and making a really high quality product, not just domestically for Australians, but potentially for export purposes as well. So, and, in the US, those were the kind of ciders that I first fell in love with and maybe kind of get into the cider industry in general.
Yeah.
But in the US, things have kind of taken longer, I think, for people to really understand what those ciders are about. And there's been kind of detours, perhaps you could say, into hop ciders and spice ciders and fruit ciders, which are wonderful. And there's a lot of innovative cider makers making those in the States. But I think Australia is kind of on a different path just because of the emphasis on growing fruit here, using 100% Australian fruit and focusing on those cider variety apples.
So do you feel like in the US where you've got that freedom to experiment, have they lost sight of what I would consider a real cider is? And is it confusing the market at all?
I think the market doesn't even really know what a real cider is, and I think that the producers assume that the education process would be more rapid than it has been. Mm-hmm. So when I said a detour earlier, I didn't really mean that as kind of a negative, but that's just sort of like what's happened, really. That's kind of where consumers are at right now, and so the education process to help people understand, 100% juice, tannic, lovely, real cider, perhaps as your term was. I think it's maybe a little bit farther down the track as far as Americans' acceptance and understanding of that style of cider.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I asked Lee this question earlier.
Yeah.
I'm guessing you've only got a small suitcase to take back to the States.
That's right.
What have you stashed away?
So I've been able to visit a lot of the producers while I've been here, because Cider Australia has arranged this wonderful itinerary for me to go around and visit producers. I just kind of have to show up at a certain time and someone picks me up in their car and takes me around. So, but I think there's a lot of interesting work being done with sort of method traditional ciders here. So a lot of the stuff I'm taking back home is in kind of a 750 cork and cage type format. Those are the things I look forward to drinking at home.
They're my favorite.
Yeah, so I'm just have been really fortunate to visit so many different places. I've been to Victoria, I've been to South Australia, to Tasmania, now I'm here in New South Wales. So I'm just kind of collecting everything I can, and
Yeah.
the 12 bottles that'll fit in my case, that's kind of what I've got, and I'm looking forward to trying this when I get home.
Rightio. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Before I let you go, can you do me one favour?
Of course.
Can you tell the Americans that we're not that far away and come over and visit and try our cider?
Exactly. So, yeah, it's a bit of a flight if you're coming from Los Angeles, but I mean, really, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity. That's at least what I thought of is
Yeah.
coming over here. So, there's an amazing cider scene here. Come check it out. Even Tasmania has its own cider trail.
Yeah.
So really, just it's easy. Cider people are friendly all over the world, particularly
Yeah.
here in Australia. So Americans, come over and have a visit. It's great.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.